Zektar's forearms trembled as he watched the last flicker of life drain from his ship's power core. The Catherian vessel that had been his home for 3 cycles now drifted silent and cold through the endless black of space. Emergency lights had failed 2 rotations ago, leaving only the faint glow of dying instruments to illuminate his scaled features. The attack had come without warning. Pirates from the Scorvan Collective had ambushed his research vessel near the Proxima Nebula, stripping it of everything valuable before leaving him to die in the void. His crew of 12 lay dead in the lower decks, their bodies frozen by the creeping cold that now invaded every corner of the ship. Zektar pulled his thermal wrap tighter around his reptilian frame, though he knew it would do little good. His species could survive in harsh conditions, but not indefinitely without power or heat. The recycling systems had failed first, then life support, and finally the emergency beacon that might have brought rescue. He stared out through the cracked viewport at the star field beyond. Somewhere out there, billions of beings lived their lives on warm worlds under bright suns. Children played in gardens while their parents worked in bustling cities. But here in this forgotten corner of space, he faced his end alone. The young scientist had devoted his life to studying ancient civilizations, particularly the mysterious ruins found on dead worlds throughout this sector. His latest expedition had uncovered evidence of a lost race that once spanned dozens of systems. Now that knowledge would die with him, scattered atoms in the cosmic wind. A soft chime from his personal datapad made him look down. The device still held enough charge for perhaps another day, though what use was time when rescue would never come? The nearest shipping lane was light years away, and his damaged engines couldn't even generate enough power to send a distress signal beyond a few thousand kilometers. Zektar closed his eyes and tried to remember the warmth of his homeworld's twin suns, the crystalline spires of the capital city rising toward purple skies, the sound of his younglings calling his name when he returned from expeditions. His mate Silara waiting at the spaceport with fresh-baked nutrition cakes and that particular shade of blue her scales turned when she was happy to see him. Those memories felt like stories from another life now. The cold had settled so deep into his bones that he could barely feel his extremities. His breathing had grown shallow, each exhale visible as a small cloud of vapor in the frigid air. Soon, very soon, he would join his crew in their eternal sleep. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had spent years studying dead civilizations, and now he would become just another piece of space debris for some future archaeologist to puzzle over. Perhaps they would wonder who he was, what dreams he'd carried among the stars. More likely, his ship would drift unnoticed until it eventually fell into some distant sun or asteroid field. A vibration through the hull made him open his eyes, probably just the ship's death throes as systems continued to fail and metal contracted in the cold. But the sensation came again, stronger this time, accompanied by a low rumble that seemed to emanate from everywhere at once. Zektar struggled to his feet, joints protesting after hours of motionlessness. The vibration was rhythmic, almost like engines firing in sequence, but that was impossible. There were no ships in this empty region of space, no reason for anyone to venture so far from established trade routes. Through the viewport, he thought he saw something. A glint of reflected starlight that didn't match the familiar patterns of distant suns. His heart began to race as the shape grew larger, more defined. It was definitely artificial, moving with purpose through the void toward his dying ship. The vessel that emerged from the darkness was unlike anything in his extensive knowledge of galactic ship designs. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of his research vessel, with angular lines and aggressive curves that spoke of military purpose. Strange markings covered its hull, symbols he didn't recognize from any known language or culture. As it drew closer, Zektar could make out weapon emplacements bristling along its sides. Massive gun batteries that could reduce his ship to vapor with a single salvo. Terror and hope warred in his chest as he realized this might be his salvation or his doom. Pirates often used unknown ship designs to avoid identification, and he had nothing left worth taking except his life. The alien warship positioned itself alongside his vessel with surprising grace for something so large. Powerful searchlights blazed to life, flooding his ship with brilliant white radiance that made him shield his eyes. After so long in darkness, the light felt like a physical blow. Then he heard something that made his blood freeze. The unmistakable sound of docking clamps engaging with his hull. Someone was coming aboard. Whether they meant rescue or a more personal end to his suffering, Zektar would soon discover what species controlled this mysterious vessel that had found him in the deepest reaches of space. The sound of cutting tools echoed through Zektar's ship as someone worked to breach the airlock. Sparks flew past the small porthole, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Whoever these beings were, they possessed advanced technology and weren't taking any chances with potentially hostile defenses. Zektar dragged himself to the main corridor, his weakened legs barely supporting his weight. If these were his final moments, he would face them standing. His research notes lay scattered around him from when the artificial gravity had failed. Years of careful documentation, now worthless paper, drifting in zero-G. The cutting stopped. A moment of silence stretched like an eternity before he heard the distinctive hiss of atmospheric equalization. Fresh air began flowing into his ship, warmer than anything he'd felt in days. His first deep breath in cycles made him dizzy with relief. Heavy footsteps rang against the metal deck plates, approaching with measured caution. The beings wore some kind of armored environmental suits that made their steps echo strangely. Zektar counted at least 3 individuals, possibly more, trailing behind. A voice spoke in a language he'd never heard before. The sounds were harsh yet melodic, with rolling consonants and sharp vowel breaks that suggested vocal cords unlike any species in the known galaxy. Universal translators took several seconds to process completely unknown languages, so he waited in tense silence. The first figure appeared around the corner, and Zektar's breath caught in his throat. The being stood nearly 2 meters tall, encased in matte black armor that revealed nothing of its true form. A helmet with a reflective visor concealed its face completely, while various instruments and sensors clustered around the neck area. Strange weapons hung from its belt, designs that followed no recognizable pattern from galactic military hardware. 2 more figures emerged behind the first, identically equipped and moving with the disciplined precision of experienced soldiers. They swept the corridor with handheld devices that beeped softly, probably scanning for life signs or hazardous materials. The lead figure spoke again, and this time the universal translator kicked in with a slight delay. Survivor located. Appears to be Catherian species. Male, severely hypothermic but alive. The voice was surprisingly warm despite the mechanical filtering, with an undertone that suggested these beings might actually care about his welfare. Zektar tried to speak but could only manage a weak croak. His throat felt like sandpaper after days of recycled air. One of the soldiers approached slowly, hands visible and empty in a gesture of peace that seemed universal among spacefaring species. Up close, Zektar could see his own reflection in the being's visor, distorted and pale. He looked like death itself, scales gone gray with cold and exhaustion. "Easy there, friend. We're here to help. My name is Commander Sarah Chen, and this is a rescue operation." The translator indicated the being was female, though her heavy armor made that impossible to confirm visually. She knelt beside him with surprising gentleness for someone in such intimidating gear, producing a small device that she pointed at his chest. Medical scanner shows severe dehydration and hypothermia. Pulse is weak but steady. No obvious injuries beyond exposure. She looked up at her companions. "Martinez, get the thermal blankets. Jackson, check the rest of the ship for other survivors." "Ma'am, thermal scans from the ship show 12 additional life signs, all negative. This appears to be the sole survivor." Commander Chen nodded grimly. "Understood. Let's get him stabilized and back to the ship." They worked with efficient competence, wrapping him in blankets that immediately began generating heat. Someone pressed a cup of warm liquid into his hands, and the first sip nearly made him weep with gratitude. It tasted like nothing he'd ever experienced, rich and complex with a subtle sweetness that spread warmth through his entire body. What species are you?" Zektar managed to whisper, his voice barely audible. Commander Chen paused in her work, and he could sense her exchanging glances with her team even though he couldn't see their faces. "We're humans," she said simply. "From Earth." The name meant nothing to him. In all his years studying galactic civilizations, ancient and modern, he had never encountered any reference to this Earth or its human inhabitants. They weren't in any database, weren't members of any known alliance or trade federation. Yet here they were, appearing like spirits from the void to save his life. "I've never heard of your people," he admitted. "That's not surprising. We're new to this part of space, still exploring, making contact with other species. Something in her tone suggested there was more to that story, but Zektar was too grateful and exhausted to press for details. These mysterious humans had found him when no one else would have thought to look, appearing in the emptiest region of space with technology and resources that spoke of a significant civilization. As they prepared to move him to their ship, Zektar caught a glimpse through the viewport of their vessel. Up close, it was even more impressive than he'd first thought. The hull design seemed to prioritize both protection and firepower, with weapon systems that looked disturbingly advanced for a species that claimed to be new to galactic exploration. "Commander," one of the soldiers called out, "the survivor's ship appears to have been attacked. Weapons damage consistent with pirate tactics." "Scorvin Collective?" Chen asked, most likely based on the attack patterns. Zektar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. How did these unknown humans know about the Scorvin pirates? That suggested they'd encountered them before, which raised uncomfortable questions about what kind of exploration brought a heavily armed warship to the deepest reaches of uninhabited space. But as they carefully lifted him onto a medical stretcher and began moving toward their ship, Zektar decided those questions could wait. Whatever secrets these humans carried, they had chosen to save his life when they could have easily passed by. In a galaxy where most species viewed others as either resources to exploit or threats to eliminate, such compassion was rarer than precious metals. The human ship's airlock welcomed him with warmth and the promise of survival. Whatever came next, he owed these mysterious beings his life. The interior of the human ship defied every expectation Zektar had formed about this mysterious species. Instead of the sterile utilitarian corridors common to most military vessels, the walls displayed what appeared to be artwork. Paintings of landscapes from alien worlds, sculptures that seemed to capture movement in metal and stone, and photographs of beings he assumed were humans in their natural form. The medical bay they brought him to was a marvel of efficiency and comfort. Advanced equipment hummed quietly around sophisticated bed units, while holographic displays showed real-time biological data that seemed to understand his Catherian physiology better than medical systems on his own homeworld. "How do you know so much about my species?" Zektar asked as a human medic attached monitoring devices to his chest. This one had removed her helmet, revealing features that were strikingly similar to several species he knew, yet distinctly different. Her skin was a warm brown color, her hair dark and straight, and her eyes held an intelligence that seemed to catalog everything around her. "We've encountered Catherians before," Dr. Reyes explained as she worked. "Your people have a reputation as skilled archaeologists and peaceful researchers. We've actually studied some of your published papers on ancient civilizations. That was impossible. Catherian academic databases were restricted to Alliance members, and these humans claimed to be new to this region of space. Yet the medical scanners were calibrating themselves to his biology with precision that suggested extensive prior knowledge." "Doctor," Commander Chen appeared in the doorway, having removed her own helmet to reveal sharp features and graying hair that spoke of experience. "How is our patient?" "Stable and recovering well. Another few hours in that cold ship and we would have been too late. His core temperature was dangerously low." Chen nodded and approached Zektar's bed. "I'm sorry about your crew. We scanned your ship's logs and saw what happened. The Scorvin Collective has been increasing their raids in this sector. You speak of them as if you know their tactics well." A shadow passed over the commander's face. "We've had encounters with them before. They don't seem to understand the concept of non-combatants." Through the medical bay's viewport, Zektar could see crew members moving through the ship's corridors. They walked with purpose and discipline, but also with a casual familiarity that suggested this vessel was more than just a military platform. He glimpsed what appeared to be recreational areas, living quarters that looked comfortable rather than merely functional, and spaces that served no obvious tactical purpose. "This is not just a warship," he observed. Commander Chen smiled, and the expression transformed her stern features completely. "Very perceptive. The UES Perseverance is an exploration vessel. We're part of humanity's deep space survey mission, mapping unknown regions and making contact with new civilizations. Yet, you carry enough firepower to fight off pirate fleets. The galaxy has taught us that. Peaceful intentions don't guarantee peaceful encounters. We've learned to be prepared for any situation." Dr. Reyes finished her examinations and stepped back. "He's stable now, but I'd recommend at least 48 hours of observation. The hypothermia was severe enough that complications could still develop. As the doctor left, Commander Chen pulled a chair beside Zektar's bed. The gesture seemed oddly personal for a military officer who had just rescued a complete stranger. "Tell me about your research," she said. "Your ship's database mentions studying ancient civilizations. That's actually one of our primary mission objectives as well." Zektar felt a spark of excitement despite his exhaustion. "You're interested in archaeology? Humanity has always been fascinated by those who came before us. We've discovered evidence of multiple advanced civilizations that once existed throughout this galaxy, then vanished without explanation. Your people's research into these lost cultures has been invaluable." Again, that suggestion of extensive prior knowledge. Zektar studied the human commander's face, noting the careful way she phrased her statements. "How long has humanity been active in galactic affairs?" "Longer than most species realize." Chen stood and moved to the viewport, gazing out at the starfield beyond. "We tend to observe before making our presence known. It served us well in understanding the political dynamics of different regions." "And what have you observed about this region?" The commander's expression hardened. "That it's dominated by predators who prey on the weak. Pirates like the Scorvan Collective, slavers from the hegemony, and worse things that lurk in the dark spaces between stars. Peaceful species like yours are increasingly rare." Zektar absorbed this information, trying to reconcile the humans' apparent newcomer status with their sophisticated understanding of galactic politics. "What do you intend to do about these predators?" "That depends on what we find as we continue our exploration. But I will say this: humanity has never tolerated bullies, whether they operate on planetary surfaces or in the depths of space." A soft chime from the ship's communication system interrupted their conversation. "Commander Chen to the bridge. Priority message from Fleet Command. Duty calls." Chen moved toward the door, then paused. "Zektar, I hope you'll consider staying aboard for a while once you've recovered. Your expertise in ancient civilizations could be valuable to our mission. And frankly, this region isn't safe for civilian vessels traveling alone." After she left, Zektar lay in the comfortable bed, trying to process everything he'd learned. These humans were clearly more than simple explorers. Their technology was advanced, their knowledge of galactic affairs extensive, and their military capabilities impressive. Yet they had risked their mission and resources to save a single-stranded researcher. Through the walls, he could hear the subtle sounds of a ship at full operation. Crew members calling out status reports, the hum of powerful engines, and the occasional announcement over the communication system. It was the sound of a functioning, purposeful organization with clear objectives and strong leadership. But what struck him most was something harder to define. Despite their obvious military capabilities and mysterious background, these humans had treated him with genuine kindness. Not the calculated courtesy shown to potential allies or resources, but simple compassion for a being in distress. In a galaxy where most species viewed others through the lens of utility or threat assessment, such behavior was extraordinary. It suggested that humanity, wherever they had come from and whatever their true capabilities, possessed something that many advanced civilizations had lost along their path to power. As he drifted toward sleep in the warm, safe environment of the human ship, Zektar found himself hoping that these mysterious beings would prove to be the allies the galaxy desperately needed. Zektar woke to the sound of alarms blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the medical bay, as the gentle hum of engines suddenly intensified to a powerful roar. Through the viewport, he could see stars wheeling as the vessel changed course rapidly. Dr. Reyes rushed into the medical bay, her face tense with urgency. "We're under attack. Scorvan pirate fleet dropped out of hyperspace right on top of us." The ship shuddered as something struck its shields, and Zektar felt his heart sink. He had brought death to these beings who had saved his life. The pirates must have tracked his ship's final trajectory, hoping to find salvageable technology or survivors to sell as slaves. "How many ships?" he asked, struggling to sit up despite the doctor's protests. 15 confirmed contacts, 3 heavy cruisers and a dozen fighters. Dr. Reyes was securing equipment as the ship maneuvered violently. "Command is trying to determine if there are more hiding in the sensor shadow of the asteroid field. 15 ships against 1, no matter how advanced the human vessel might be." Zektar had studied enough military history to know those odds were impossible. The Scorvan Collective specialized in overwhelming individual targets with superior numbers, stripping away shields and weapons through coordinated attacks. "You should surrender," he said quietly. "Tell them I'm dead. Maybe they'll let you go." Dr. Reyes looked at him with an expression that might have been amusement under different circumstances. "You don't know much about humans, do you?" The ship's communication system crackled to life with Commander Chen's voice. "All hands, this is the captain. We have multiple hostile contacts attempting to surround our position. Engineering reports shields at full power. All weapon systems online. We are not running from pirates today." Another impact, stronger this time, sent vibrations through the deck plates. But instead of the panicked emergency protocols Zektar expected, the crew's responses over the comm system sounded almost casual. Status reports flowed in crisp, professional tones, as if facing overwhelming odds was routine for these humans. "Dr. Reyes, medical bay secure?" "Affirmative, Captain. Patient is stable and secured." "Copy that. All departments stand by for combat operations." The ship's engines suddenly cut to minimal power and Zektar realized they had stopped running. Through the viewport, he could see the Scorvan ships moving to surround them, their black hulls bristling with weapons designed for close-range destruction. "Why aren't we running?" he asked. "Because running just encourages them." Dr. Reyes checked her medical equipment one final time. "Besides, the Perseverance has never lost a fight." A new voice came over the communication system, speaking in the harsh, guttural language of the Scorvan pirates. The universal translator converted it with obvious distaste. "Human vessel, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in the destruction of your ship and the sale of your crew to the slave markets." Commander Chen's response was calm and steady. "Scorvan vessels, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Perseverance. You are interfering with the humanitarian rescue operation. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Harsh laughter echoed across the comm channel. "Humans, the galaxy's newest prey species. Your pathetic fleet sent only one ship to explore our territory? We will make an example that will keep your kind cowering in their home system. Target their lead cruiser." Chen's voice shifted to crisp military command. "All batteries, prepare to fire on my mark." Zektar watched in fascination as the human ship's weapon systems came online. Gun ports opened along the hull to reveal weapon barrels larger than anything he'd seen on vessels this size. Energy readings spiked on the medical bay's sensors as massive capacitors charged to full power. The Scorvan ships began their attack run, probably expecting the single human vessel to attempt one last desperate maneuver before being overwhelmed. Their formation was textbook perfect for surrounding and destroying isolated targets. "Fire," Commander Chen said simply. The Perseverance erupted in controlled fury. Beams of coherent energy lanced out toward the attacking ships with precision that defied belief. The lead Scorvan cruiser's shields flared and collapsed under the focused bombardment, its hull splitting open to vent atmosphere and debris. But that was only the beginning. Secondary weapon systems engaged the fighter squadrons with rapid-fire plasma bursts that moved too fast for organic reflexes to track. Point defense systems created a wall of intercepting fire that destroyed incoming missiles before they could reach their target. The second Scorvan cruiser tried to return fire, but its weapons seemed pitifully inadequate against the human ship's shields. Energy beams that should have caused significant damage simply dissipated against defensive fields that appeared far more advanced than their projectors suggested. "Impossible," Zektar whispered, watching the battle through the viewport. "No single ship can fight off an entire fleet." "Human ships can," Dr. Reyes said with quiet pride. "We've learned to be very, very good at protecting ourselves." The third Scorvan cruiser attempted to ram the Perseverance, probably hoping to use its mass to breach the human ship's defenses. It never made contact. A spread of projectile weapons launched from concealed tubes along the human vessel's hull, each one precisely targeted to critical systems. The cruiser's engines exploded in sequence, leaving it tumbling helplessly through space. The remaining fighter squadrons broke formation and attempted to escape, but they had underestimated the range of human weapons. Long-range energy beams reached out across thousands of kilometers to disable their engines, leaving them drifting but alive. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Scorvan attack fleet had been neutralized. Not destroyed completely but rendered helpless and unable to threaten anyone else. "Scorvan vessels," Commander Chen's voice carried across the comm channels. "Your crews will be taken aboard our ship as prisoners. You will be provided with medical care and adequate nutrition during your detention. Upon our return to civilized space, you will be turned over to appropriate authorities. You defeated our entire fleet. The lead pirate's voice had lost all its arrogance. How is this possible? Because we came prepared, Chen replied. And because humanity doesn't abandon those who need help, regardless of the cost. As the human crew began recovery operations, collecting prisoners and salvaging what they could from the disabled ships, Zektar realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just superior technology or tactics, but a fundamental difference in how these humans approached conflict. They hadn't simply destroyed their enemies. They had neutralized the threat while preserving life, even the lives of those who had intended murder and slavery. In a galaxy where might made right and mercy was seen as weakness, such behavior was revolutionary. Dr. Reyes, he said quietly, what exactly are humans planning to do in this galaxy? She smiled as she checked his vital signs one final time. Make it a better place for everyone, including species that haven't learned to play nicely with others. 3 days after the battle, Zekatar was finally cleared for limited movement around the ship. Dr. Reyes had insisted on thorough observation, but his recovery had been remarkably swift, thanks to human medical technology that seemed to understand Cytherian biology better than most. Hospitals on his homeworld. His first destination was the ship's detention area, where the captured Scorvan pirates were being held. Curiosity about how humans treated prisoners had been eating at him since the battle ended. In his experience, most species either executed captured pirates or sold them to whoever offered the best price. The detention level surprised him. Instead of cramped cells designed for punishment, the Scorvan prisoners occupied clean, well-lit quarters with proper sleeping arrangements and recreational facilities. Guards were present but not oppressive, and he could hear the sound of conversation and even laughter coming from some of the holding areas. Commander Chen found him observing the detention level through a security window. Interesting, isn't it? I don't understand. These beings tried to kill us all, yet you're treating them like honored guests. Not honored guests. Prisoners who retain basic rights regardless of their crimes. Chen gestured toward the holding areas. Some of them have never experienced treatment like this. Many Scorvan become pirates because their own society offers them no alternative. Through the window, Zektar could see a human medical officer treating a wounded pirate's arm with the same care she would show any patient. The Scorvan seemed confused by such attention, repeatedly asking why she was helping him. You're trying to rehabilitate them? We're showing them that strength doesn't have to mean cruelty, that there are alternatives to predating on the weak. Chen's expression was thoughtful. Some of them will never change, but a few might decide there's a better way to live. They walked together toward the ship's main laboratories, where Zektar had requested access to study the archaeological data the humans had collected. Along the way, they passed observation lounges where off-duty crew members relaxed, reading physical books or engaging in games that seemed to require both strategy and cooperation. Commander, may I ask how long humanity has been spacefaring? Officially, about 300 years, but we've been exploring beyond our immediate stellar neighborhood for less than 50. The timeline didn't make sense. 300 years was barely enough time for a species to establish reliable interstellar travel, let alone develop the advanced technology and sophisticated understanding of galactic politics the humans displayed. Your technological development seems remarkably rapid. Chen paused at a junction in the corridor, her expression becoming carefully neutral. Humans have always been quick learners. We study everything we encounter, adapt what works and improve on what doesn't. The archaeological laboratory was a revelation. Banks of quantum computers processed data from dozens of dead worlds, cross-referencing artifacts and ruins to build comprehensive pictures of lost civilizations. The scope of human exploration became clear as Zektar examined their database. You've surveyed over 200 systems, he breathed, studying the star charts. Some of these are in regions no known species has ever explored. We prefer to work in areas where we won't encounter established territorial claims, explained Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's head archaeologist. Fewer political complications that way. But as Zektar delved deeper into their findings, patterns emerged that troubled him. Many of the dead worlds showed evidence of the same catastrophic end. Civilizations that had reached heights of technological achievement, then vanished within the span of a few generations. Look at this. He pointed to analysis of ruins on a world designated only as Target 7. These beings developed quantum computing, fusion power, even early forms of consciousness transfer. But the dating suggests their entire civilization collapsed in less than 50 years. Dr. Kim leaned over his shoulder to examine the data. We found similar patterns on 17 different worlds. Rapid technological advancement followed by sudden, complete societal breakdown. What caused it? That's what we're trying to determine. Some sites show evidence of warfare. Others appear to have been simply abandoned. A few worlds were actually destroyed. Their surfaces turned to glass by weapons we can't identify. Zektar felt a chill as implications began forming in his mind. Commander Chen, exactly how many lost civilizations have humans discovered? 43 confirmed extinct species, probably more that we haven't found yet. The number was staggering. Galactic civilization knew of perhaps a dozen extinct species, and those were generally attributed to natural disasters or gradual decline. 43 suggested something else entirely. Has anyone considered that these extinctions might not be random? The humans exchanged glances that Zektar was beginning to recognize. The careful look of beings who knew more than they were saying. That possibility has occurred to us, Chen said finally, which is why we've been so interested in making contact with surviving civilizations, to understand what threats might still exist, and to evaluate which species might be capable of defending themselves, Dr. Kim added quietly. The pieces began falling into place for Zektar. Humanity's advanced technology, their extensive knowledge of galactic politics despite claiming to be newcomers, their systematic exploration of dead worlds, and their careful study of existing species. You're not just explorers, he said. You're preparing for war. Commander Chen was quiet for a long moment, studying the star charts that showed the locations of so many dead worlds. We're preparing to survive, Zektar, and to help others survive as well. Survive what? Whatever killed 43 civilizations and left their worlds as monuments to failure. She turned to face him directly. Something is hunting advanced species in this galaxy, something that has been active for thousands of years. Most civilizations never realize the threat exists until it's too late. But you do. We learned about it the hard way. Earth's first deep space exploration mission found a dead world only 30 light-years from our home system. The beings there had been spacefaring for over a millennium when something destroyed them completely. We decided that wouldn't happen to humanity. Zektar stared at the archaeological data with new understanding. So you've been mapping the pattern of destruction, studying the survivors, building your strength in secret. And now we've reached the point where we can start making a difference. Chen's voice carried quiet determination. We can't save the civilizations that are already lost, but we might be able to prevent future extinctions. Including the Catherians? Including any species that wants to live free from predation, whether from pirates or something far worse. As Zektar absorbed this revelation, he realized his rescue had been more than a chance encounter. These humans were actively patrolling the dangerous regions of space, protecting vulnerable species while gathering intelligence about the galaxy's hidden threats. What do you need from me? He asked. Commander Chen smiled, and for the first time since his rescue, it reached her eyes completely. Help us understand what we're up against. Your people's archaeological expertise could be the key to identifying our enemy before they strike again. Working alongside human archaeologists proved to be the most intellectually stimulating experience of Zektar's career. Their approach to ancient mysteries combined rigorous scientific method with an intuitive understanding of how civilizations developed that seemed almost supernatural in its accuracy. Dr. Kim had assigned him access to their most sensitive archaeological files, including detailed surveys of worlds where the destruction pattern was clearest. What emerged from weeks of analysis was a picture that chilled him to his core. The extinction events follow a predictable timeline, he explained to the assembled research team. Advanced civilizations develop certain technological milestones: quantum computing, artificial intelligence, faster than light travel. Within 50 years of achieving all three, they vanish. As if something is monitoring technological development across the galaxy, Dr. Kim observed, waiting for species to reach a specific threshold before taking action. Commander Chen studied the holographic display showing extinction sites scattered across known space. Have any of the surviving civilizations reached those milestones? Only 3 species have achieved all 3 technologies and survived beyond the 50-year mark, Zektar said, highlighting systems on the star map. The hegemony, the Keth Syndicate, and humanity, Chen finished. How long ago did we cross that threshold? Dr. Kim consulted her files. Based on your technological development, approximately 47 years ago. The silence in the room was profound. If the pattern held true, humanity had perhaps 3 years before whatever force had destroyed 43 civilizations turned its attention to Earth and her colonies. There's something else, Zektar continued, calling up analysis of artifact fragments found on destroyed worlds. These energy signatures don't match any known weapon technology. The destruction wasn't caused by warfare between species we recognize. Meaning we're not dealing with any of the current galactic powers. This is something else entirely. Something that prefers to remain hidden while it eliminates potential threats. Captain Chen activated the ship's communication system. All senior staff to the main briefing room. Priority Alpha classification. As the research team filed out, Zektar found himself alone with Commander Chen. The weight of their discovery hung heavy between them. How long have you suspected this? He asked. Since we found the first destroyed world, but we needed proof. Evidence that would convince other species to take the threat seriously. She gestured toward the holographic display. Your expertise has provided that proof. What will you do with it? That depends on what we find at our next destination. Chen called up a star chart showing a system at the edge of explored space. Long-range sensors have detected artificial structures in the Kepler 442 system. Structures that don't match any known architectural patterns. Zektar studied the coordinates with growing excitement and dread. You think you found them? The species responsible for the extinctions? Possibly. Or we found another dead civilization that might provide more clues. Chen's expression was grim. Either way, we need to investigate before whatever destroyed the others decides that humanity's time is up. The Perseverance altered course for the Kepler 442 system, but not before taking on additional supplies and personnel from a concealed human depot in an asteroid field. Zektar watched with fascination as the asteroid revealed itself to be an advanced military installation, complete with manufacturing facilities and what appeared to be additional warships. How many of these hidden bases do you have? He asked Dr. Reyes as they observed the resupply operation. Enough, she replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Humanity learned early that surviving in a hostile galaxy requires multiple backup plans. The journey to Kepler 442 took 6 days at maximum hyperspace velocity. During that time, Zektar worked with the human tactical team to analyze everything they knew about the extinction events, looking for patterns that might predict how the mysterious enemy operated. What they discovered was deeply disturbing. The destroyed civilizations had all been peaceful, scientifically advanced species with sophisticated cultures and strong ethical frameworks. Aggressive militaristic civilizations seemed to be ignored entirely, as if the unknown force had specific criteria for which species posed a threat. It's not about military capability, he explained to Commander Chen as they studied the profiles. Every extinct species showed evidence of ethical advancement alongside technological development. They were species that might have eventually unified their regions of space, brought peace and stability to multiple systems. Species that might have challenged whoever is doing this. Exactly, but there's something else. All the extinct civilizations had one trait in common beyond their technological advancement. What trait? They were all spacefaring species that helped other beings. Rescue operations, humanitarian aid, protection of weaker civilizations. They were the good guys. Chen was quiet for a long moment, like humanity. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, long-range sensors immediately detected the artificial structures. But what they found defied every expectation. The structures weren't weapons platforms or military installations. They were monuments, vast constructions of crystalline material that held detailed records of the destroyed civilizations, preserved in quantum storage matrices that could last for millions of years. It's a graveyard, Dr. Kim whispered as they studied the sensor readings. A memorial to every species that's been eliminated. But the monuments weren't the most disturbing discovery. Orbiting the system's primary star was a construct that dwarfed anything in galactic civilization. Thousands of kilometers long, it showed clear signs of ongoing activity, despite its ancient origins. Commander, The sensor operator called out. "We're detecting movement from the large construct. Something is launching from it." On the main screen, they could see ships emerging from the massive structure, ships that shared no design philosophy with any known species, their forms suggesting technologies that followed entirely different evolutionary paths. "Red alert," Commander Chen ordered. "All hands to battle stations." But as the alien vessels approached, they didn't move like attackers. Their formation was ceremonial, almost respectful, and they maintained a distance that suggested caution rather than aggression. A communication signal reached the Perseverance, carried on frequencies that required advanced technology to detect. When the Universal Translator processed it, the voice that emerged was ancient beyond measure, carrying the weight of eons. "Greetings, children of Earth. We are the keepers of the end. We have been waiting for you to find us." Zektar felt his hearts racing as he realized they had found their answer, but instead of the enemy they expected, they had encountered something far more complex. The beings responsible for the extinctions were here, waiting to explain their actions to the latest species to cross the threshold. Whatever humanity learned in the next few hours would determine not just their own fate, but possibly the future of every civilization in the galaxy. The Keeper vessel that docked with the Perseverance was a work of art that functioned as a starship. Its hull seemed to shift between states of matter, solid one moment and translucent the next, while patterns of light flowed across its surface like living thought made visible. Commander Chen insisted that Zektar accompany the human delegation to the meeting, recognizing that his archaeological expertise might prove crucial in understanding beings whose civilization was older than recorded galactic history. The Keeper who greeted them defied easy description. Its form seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, sometimes appearing as a tall ethereal being with crystalline features, other times as pure energy given shape and purpose. When it spoke, the words arrived directly in their minds rather than through sound. "I am Eternal Watcher of Endings, current guardian of this memorial sector. We apologize for the necessity of this meeting, but your species has reached the threshold where choice can no longer be delayed." "Choice?" Commander Chen's voice remained steady, despite the overwhelming presence of the ancient being. "The choice that faces every civilization that achieves true technological and ethical advancement, whether to accept limitation or face inevitable destruction." Zektar felt his scientific mind reeling as implications crashed over him. "You're the ones who destroyed the 43 civilizations. We are the ones who offered them the same choice we now offer humanity. Most chose to reject our guidance." The Keeper's form shifted, showing images of the destroyed worlds in their prime. All suffered the consequences of that decision. "What choice?" Chen demanded. "What gives you the right to determine the fate of entire species?" The space around them changed, becoming a vast chamber filled with holographic displays showing the history of the galaxy across millions of years. Civilizations rose and fell in accelerated time, each one following a similar pattern of growth, expansion, and eventual catastrophe. We give ourselves this right because we are the survivors of the first extinction cycle. 3 million years ago, our people achieved what you call technological singularity. We transcended physical limitation, unified our consciousness, and spread across the galaxy with power that seemed infinite. The display showed a golden age of incredible achievement. Worlds transformed into gardens, diseases eliminated, death itself conquered through technology that bordered on magic. And then we met them. The golden age shattered as new images appeared, beings from outside the galaxy, entities that existed in higher dimensions and viewed three-dimensional life as humans might view bacteria. They arrived without warning and began harvesting entire civilizations, using advanced species as raw material for projects beyond mortal comprehension. The Devourers consumed 90% of galactic civilization before we found a way to drive them back. But they promised to return when the galaxy had rebuilt itself to sufficient complexity. The Keeper's mental voice carried infinite sadness. That promise has shaped everything that followed. Zektar watched civilizations rising and falling in endless cycles, each generation reaching toward the stars, only to be cut down when they achieved too much advancement. You've been culling species to prevent them from attracting the Devourer's attention. We have been maintaining balance, allowing enough advancement to keep the galaxy vibrant, but preventing the critical mass of development that would summon the harvest. Commander Chen's expression was granite hard. by murdering billions of innocent beings, by preserving trillions more. Every civilization we have guided to ending was given the choice to accept voluntary limitation of their development. Most refused, believing their technology could protect them from consequences they did not understand. And if humanity refuses your guidance? The keeper gestured toward the memorial monuments visible through the chamber's transparent walls. Then you will join the others who chose pride over wisdom. Your worlds will be cleansed, your achievements recorded, and the galaxy will continue its careful dance beneath the attention of greater predators. Zektar stepped forward, his mind racing through archaeological evidence with new understanding, but some species accepted limitation. The hegemony, the Keth Syndicate, they're allowed to exist because they agreed to restrict their development. Correct. They maintain their civilizations within parameters that do not risk drawing external attention. They are free to explore, to create, to grow within acceptable bounds. What bounds? Chen's voice cut like a blade. No development of consciousness transfer technology beyond individual applications. No creation of artificial intelligences that might achieve true sentience. No unified species consciousness that might be detected across dimensional barriers. These are the markers that attract the Devourer's attention. The chamber fell silent as the humans absorbed this information. Zektar could see them calculating, weighing the cost of compliance against the promise of survival. How long do we have to decide? Chen asked finally. Your species has already exceeded safe development thresholds. We detected quantum consciousness experiments in your outer colonies, AI research that approaches true sentience, and preliminary work on species-wide neural networks. The choice must be made now. And if we choose to fight, then you will face not just our intervention, but the attention your continued advancement will eventually attract. The Devourers will return within a century, if current development patterns continue. They will consume not just humanity but every species in this region of the galaxy. Zektar watched Commander Chen's face, seeing her struggle with an impossible decision. Accept limitation and preserve humanity within boundaries, or reject control and risk not just human extinction, but galactic catastrophe. I need to consult with my superiors, Chen said finally. How long can you give us? We will maintain our position here for 10 of your days. After that, our responsibility to the greater galaxy must take precedence over consideration for individual species. As they returned to the Perseverance, Zektar could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. The humans had come to the galaxy to prevent the extinction of advanced civilizations, only to discover that those extinctions were the price of preventing something far worse. What will your people choose? He asked Chen as they reached the ship's bridge. I don't know, she admitted, but I do know this. Humanity has never accepted that survival requires abandoning our principles. If there's a third option, we'll find it. And if there isn't, Commander Chen looked out at the memorial monuments surrounding them, each one representing the grave of a civilization that had faced the same impossible choice. Then we'll create one. That's what humans do when the universe says something is impossible. As the Perseverance prepared to transmit humanity's discovery back to Earth, Zektar realized that his rescue from the void had led to the most important moment in galactic history. The decisions made in the next 10 days would determine whether the galaxy continued its careful balance between safety and stagnation, or whether humanity would find a way to break free from millions of years of enforced limitation. Either way, the universe was about to discover that humans were unlike any species that had come before them, and that might make all the difference between extinction and true freedom among the stars.